Have you noticed how you've been carrying everyone else's weight but can barely feel your own strength anymore? You've been strong for so long, always giving, always forgiving, until, deep inside, it feels like you're slowly disappearing. When did your kindness start to feel like a cage? When did being good become a mask you wear to hide how much you're breaking inside? Here's what no one tells you: the parts of yourself you've buried. Your anger, your pain, your truth. Don't vanish. They wait. They grow louder. Carl Jung believed that what we refuse to see in ourselves will eventually rise up and demand our attention. But this doesn't have to destroy you. In fact, facing these hidden parts can set you free. In this video, I'll show you how to uncover the strength you've been hiding all along and how embracing your shadow could be the turning point you've been waiting for. If you've ever felt invisible or like you're on the edge of breaking, stay until the end. This might be the moment your soul finally finds its voice. 1. The developmental roots of the empath's fear. What if the fear you've been running from is the very thing that could set you free? It's hard to see it, but many of the habits that make you look strong on the outside are built from wounds you never chose. Imagine being told as a child, through words or silence, that your emotions were too much. A slammed door after you cried. A parent's cold stare when you said how you felt. A quiet message that said, if you want love, you need to be easy to love. That's when you learn to smile instead of scream, to stay instead of run, to nod yes when everything in you wanted to say no. There was a time you thought this made you kind, but one day you realized that kindness had turned into a cage. You became the one who never asks for help, the one who always shows up no matter how tired you are. You became so good at reading the room that you forgot how to read your own heart. And the truth is, this wasn't a gift. It was survival. It was the only way you knew how to keep love from disappearing. Here's the secret no one told you. What you hide doesn't go away. Carl Jung said it best. What you resist persists. Every smile when you wanted to cry, every I'm fine when you were breaking, all of it goes somewhere. It sinks into your shadow, the part of you that holds every emotion you've exiled just to be accepted. And the more brightly you shine your goodness, the more fiercely the shadow grows in the dark. Think about it. Have you noticed that tension inside you? You feel irritated for no reason. You dread conversations that once felt effortless. You resent people you care about, then feel guilty for even thinking that way. You stay silent, then explode over something small and wonder, where did that come from? That's not weakness. That's your shadow demanding to be heard. The next part may be the most important truth you've never heard. Ignoring this voice doesn't make you strong. It makes you fragile. So let's pause. What if the anger you've buried isn't trying to destroy you but protect you? What if it's a signal that you've been abandoning yourself for too long? This is where the real story begins. Every empath has a breaking point, and it's not because they're broken. It's because their soul refuses to live as a mirror for everyone else while fading away inside. When you've spent years pretending that peace means silence, one day you'll snap. And that snapping, it's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's your inner voice saying, enough. It's time to come home to yourself. Have you ever felt that? That quiet ache that feels like something inside is screaming, but you can't find the words? If you have, you're not alone. In fact, this tension is the starting line of your freedom. You're waking up from the trance of pleasing, of performing, of trying to be good just to feel safe. And what comes next might scare you, but it will also free you. Because peace without boundaries isn't peace at all. It's a prison. So here's what I want you to do. Take a deep breath. Think back to the last time you said yes when you wanted to say no. Hold that memory for just a second. Do you feel the weight of it in your chest? That's the cost of abandoning yourself. But here's the truth. Every no you've been afraid to say is an invitation to a deeper yes. Yes to your energy, yes to your truth, yes to your life. The next part of this journey will show you why your shadow, the part of you you've been hiding, is actually your greatest teacher. So stay with me, because once you understand how your shadow works, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. 2. The psychic toll of repression. What if the pain you've been hiding is the very reason you feel so heavy? For many empaths, repression doesn't look like a storm. It's quieter, almost invisible, until one day you can't tell where your feelings end and someone else's begin. Imagine carrying every unspoken hurt, every sigh you swallowed, every boundary you let slip because you were afraid of being seen as too much. It's like building a dam inside your soul, and one day, the cracks start to show. There was a time you thought being kind meant saying yes, even when you were screaming no inside. But kindness without limits slowly turns into self-erasure. You forgive too quickly. You offer understanding before you even let yourself feel your own pain. You smile when you're breaking inside. And here's the truth. What you repress doesn't vanish. It waits. It collects, and then it seeps into everything from the way your body tenses during harmless conversations to the way you wake up in the middle of the night with a racing heart. One woman shared on Reddit, "I used to dream of open fields and music. Now I only dream of running, always chased by something I can't see." Another wrote, "I cried in my sleep and woke up with tears on my pillow. I wasn't sad when I went to bed." These aren't just dreams, they are messages from the unconscious. Carl Jung believed that what we bury in the dark grows until it demands to be seen. The snakes, the floods, the fire, they are not nightmares, they are signals. And your psyche is whispering, you cannot keep carrying this weight. So let's pause. If this feels like your story, know that you are not broken. You are awakening to the truth that your emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. And as frightening as this awakening feels, it is sacred. It's the beginning of reclaiming your own energy. The first step is simple but powerful. Stop trying to hold everyone else's chaos. You are not a bottomless well. Every day, take 5 minutes and ask yourself, what emotion have I been avoiding? Write it down. Feel it. Don't judge it. Most empaths don't need to be told how to care more. They need permission to feel without guilt. The second step, reclaim your space. When someone's story starts to drain you, you don't owe them all of you. It's okay to say, "I need time to recharge," or "I'm not in the right place to take this on." That's not cruelty. That's clarity. And the third step, guard your rest like it's sacred. Turn off your phone before bed. Play music that calms your nervous system. Keep a journal near you. And when a dream shakes you awake, write it down. Those dreams are not random. They're the soul's way of knocking on the door you've closed. Here's the truth no one tells you. Living with open empathy but no boundaries will erode you. You'll forget the sound of your own voice. You'll forget what rest feels like. You'll forget how to want something just for you. But naming this pattern is where freedom begins. The moment you see it, you can choose differently. You stop absorbing, you start discerning. You stop rescuing, you start respecting. You stop fading into the background of your own life. And that shift changes everything. You begin to feel the difference between your emotions and the emotions of others. You notice when your breath shortens, when your chest tightens, when your energy drains, and you listen. These are not signs of weakness. They are your body's way of saying, "This is too much. Please listen." So here's your step for today. Take one quiet moment to ask yourself, am I carrying this because it's mine? or because I was taught to hold pain that doesn't belong to me. Take a deep breath. Then let one thing go. And if no one has told you this, let me say it now. You do not need to sacrifice yourself to be good. You do not need to vanish to be loved. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be human. You are allowed to be free. But what happens when you carry too much for too long? What does it look like when your soul finally says enough? That's where we're heading next, because snapping isn't failure, it's the soul demanding to be heard. Stay with me. If this video is helping you see things differently, please share it with someone you care about. It could be a small gift that makes their day a little lighter. 3. The moment of snapping. What if the quietest part of you is the one preparing to break free? Snapping doesn't always start with an explosion. Sometimes it begins with silence, the heavy kind that lingers like a warning. A moment passes, then another, and suddenly something inside you shatters, not like fragile glass, but like a dam that can no longer hold the weight. There was a time you believed kindness meant absorbing everything. You thought being strong meant never complaining, never saying no, and never asking for help. But one day you realized this kindness had turned into a cage. You stayed silent for too long. You swallowed your own voice. And then, in one moment, you broke the pattern. A man once shared on a forum, "I spent years making excuses for the people who hurt me. I told myself they were tired, stressed, or just didn't mean it. But one day, something small, something that had happened 100 times before, made me get up and walk away. I didn't even cry. I just left. And for the first time, I felt nothing but clarity." That is the moment of snapping. Snapping isn't always dramatic, it's not always loud, but it is always final. It's the point where the empath who has carried everyone else's burdens finally chooses themselves. No more fixing, no more bending, no more bleeding for someone else's comfort. And yes, the world around you will be surprised. They'll say, "She's changed, he's selfish," but they don't see the years you spent drowning in silence. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever felt that moment rising inside you? That deep knowing that something has to change or you will lose yourself completely? If so, you're not alone. You're waking up. Here's the truth. Snapping isn't losing control. It's reclaiming it. It's your nervous system saying, "I've whispered for years. Now I need to shout." The headaches, the chest tightness, the restless nights, they were all warning signs. The final snap? That's your body stepping in to protect your soul. Still with me? Good, because what comes after the snap is where the real transformation begins. Most empaths feel two things afterward: guilt and relief. Guilt because they were trained to believe self-protection is selfish. Relief because, for the first time, they chose themselves over the endless performance of pleasing. And choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop dying inside to keep others comfortable. Here's what snapping can look like in real life. You cancel plans that drain you. You delete the number that's been hurting you. You finally speak the boundary you've rehearsed in your mind for months. Your heart pounds, but this time you don't back down. You cry, not out of sadness, but because you feel lighter. That's strength. That's the voice of someone who has been taught to be small and finally decides to stand tall. For some, snapping is a whisper, a quiet but final goodbye. For others, it's a storm, a slammed door, a moment of raw truth. But in every case, it's sacred. It's your soul saying, "I will not carry what isn't mine. I will not prove my worth by suffering. I will not shrink just to be acceptable." And yes, it's messy. People will not always understand. Some relationships will fall apart, some will deepen. But you are no longer performing for applause you never asked for. You're no longer auditioning for a role you never wanted. You are becoming real. So let's take a breath. If you are at that snapping point, on the edge of it, or looking back at it, remember this. It's not the end. It's the turning point. It's the chapter where you realize you were never powerless. You were simply conditioned to believe you were. And what comes next? The rebuilding, the rediscovery, the aftermath that shapes a stronger version of who you are meant to be. That's what we're about to explore. Stay with me, because the next part might just change how you see your own strength. 4. The path to integration. What if the breaking point you feared was never meant to destroy you, but to rebuild you? Healing doesn't truly begin when everything feels calm. It begins when the old mask finally cracks and the raw, unfiltered version of you steps into the light. That moment is terrifying, but it's also the invitation to step into your real power. There was a time you believed staying quiet was the same as keeping peace. But silence doesn't always mean harmony. Sometimes it means your soul has been buried so deep you can't hear it anymore, and then one day you snap. Not because you're weak, but because something inside you refuses to be silenced any longer. The snapping is not the end. It's the demolition before the rebuild. And the rebuild, that's integration. Imagine waking up in the ruins of a house you've lived in for years. The fire has burned everything you once used to define yourself. Your niceness, your endless giving, your quiet compliance. Now, you stand in the ashes with a choice. Rebuild the same fragile walls, or build something stronger with your bare hands. Integration is choosing to build differently. But here's where many get lost. They confuse integration with indulgence. They think owning their anger means lashing out. They believe reclaiming power means becoming cruel. But true integration isn't chaos, it's clarity. It's learning to stand at the center of your full range of emotions and say, yes, this is all me, and I still get to choose who I want to be. A man in a support group once said, "For years I thought being good meant being silent. I thought if I showed anger, I'd become my father, violent and bitter. But therapy taught me I could feel anger without becoming destructive. Now when I'm angry, I name it, I breathe, I decide what to do with it. I don't fear my shadow anymore, I work with it." His story is a reminder that anger, when faced, can be a compass instead of a cage. Let's pause here. If you're still listening, chances are you've already felt your own shadow pressing against you. Maybe you're tired of pretending everything's fine. Maybe you're starting to realize that integration isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole. In daily life, integration looks like small, radical choices. You pause before reacting. You say no and resist the urge to explain why. You allow yourself to feel fully before forgiving. You walk away from chaos, not with rage, but with quiet clarity. These may look like small acts, but they are revolutions for someone who's spent years bleeding for others, just to feel worthy. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you silenced yourself to keep the peace? And what would it look like if you chose yourself instead, even for just one moment? Of course, the path isn't a straight line. There will be days when you slip back into old habits, days when you catch yourself over-explaining, people-pleasing, or shrinking to make others comfortable. But that's not failure. It's just the echo of an old version of you that's still learning. You don't have to hide anymore. And when that happens, take a breath, pause, name it, thank it for trying to protect you, and then return to the stronger, truer version of yourself. Because this version of you, the one who chooses consciously, who feels fully, is not softer, it's sharper, stronger, unshakable. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." True healing doesn't come from denying your shadow. It comes from befriending it. It comes from becoming the light that has walked through the dark and still chooses to shine. So let this sink in. You are not here to be pure. You are here to be whole. You are not here to be light. You are here to be real. And when the fear of being misunderstood rises, ask yourself, do I want to be accepted for a mask or respected for my truth? The integrated empath isn't the one who saves everyone else. It's the one who finally stops abandoning themselves. And this, my friend, is just the beginning. Because what happens when you walk this path long enough, when you no longer flinch at your own shadow, when you stop apologizing for your fire, that's when discernment is born and everything changes. Stay with me. The next step might just reveal the strongest version of you that you've never met. If this video resonates with you, or if you see something that could be clearer or more helpful, please leave a comment and share your thoughts. Let me know what spoke to you and what I could improve. Your feedback helps me make better content for you and everyone else watching. 5. The power of discernment. What if saying yes too often is the very thing draining your life force? There comes a moment in every empath's life when love alone stops being enough, when kindness without boundaries starts to feel like slow self-betrayal, when the word yes feels less like compassion and more like a chain. That moment, that quiet inner snap, is where discernment begins. There was a time you thought being kind meant never setting limits. You believed that keeping the peace was worth swallowing your voice. But then you woke up one day and realized that peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's suppression. You are not meant to be a sponge for the world's chaos, and yet for years you've soaked it all in. You've mistaken constant giving for strength, but deep down, you're running on empty. Here's the truth no one tells you. Empathy without clarity isn't compassion, it's self-erasure. A woman once shared online, "I thought I was compassionate, but I was just afraid of conflict. I called it love, but it was fear in disguise." Her words resonated with thousands because so many of us have worn that same mask. We give, we bend, we absorb, thinking we're doing good, while inside we're quietly dissolving. Let's pause. Have you noticed the signs? Feeling drained after conversations, even with people you care about, carrying emotions that don't belong to you, justifying mistreatment because you believe they're just hurting. These are not acts of love, these are warnings. Carl Jung believed that what we don't face in ourselves gets projected onto others. That's why the cruelty or manipulation you ignore in someone else often mirrors the part of you that has been silenced. So what changes when you start seeing clearly? You begin to notice patterns instead of just faces. You recognize that the friend who charms everyone but belittles you isn't harmless. You see that the partner who always needs saving but never asks how you feel isn't love. It's a one-way street. Discernment doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. And here's the wild part. This clarity doesn't weaken your love, it makes it magnetic. When you protect your energy, you stop chasing connection, you start choosing it. You walk into a room and people can feel it. You're not there to please. You're simply there, grounded in who you are. Your boundaries aren't walls, they're gates of wisdom, allowing in what's healthy and keeping out what drains you. Let that sink in, because at first it will feel strange. You might feel guilty for saying no, for walking away, for not rescuing everyone who asks for your time. But boundaries aren't rejection. They are recognition of your worth. They're your soul's way of saying, I matter too. Here's a simple step you can try right now. Think of one small situation where you usually say yes out of guilt. Just imagine saying no, not with anger, but with calm clarity. How does that feel? Scary? Liberating? Both? That tension you feel is the doorway to discernment. Once you learn to say no with love, everything shifts. You stop mistaking drama for depth. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You stop giving away pieces of yourself just to feel needed. Instead, you listen with presence, but you no longer carry weight that isn't yours. That's not selfishness. That's sacred alignment. And slowly, something profound happens. You become the force you once feared. Not a monster, a whole, grounded human. Someone who understands that true love requires limits, that peace demands strength, that empathy without truth will drown you. This is the power of discernment, and it's only the beginning, because once you stop being a mirror for others, you face the deeper question, who am I when I stand alone? That's where the real journey starts. Don't go anywhere. The next part will show you how this inner awakening can turn pain into unshakable power. 6. The Journey of Individuation. What if the person you've been looking to save has always been you? For so many empaths, life feels like one long performance. Reading the room, fixing the mess, pouring energy into everyone else while forgetting their own reflection. But one day, you stop and ask, who am I if I'm not holding everyone together? There was a woman who said, I thought my worth depended on how much I could heal others, but when I stopped, I didn't feel free. I felt empty. I didn't know who I was without their pain to fix. Her story resonates because it's the silent truth of many empaths. The danger isn't only exhaustion, it's losing your center entirely. Somewhere between rescuing and pleasing, you vanish. The truth is, individuation, the journey back to yourself, doesn't start with doing more. It starts with feeling more. It's the brave act of turning inward and saying, here I am. I see you. It's not about rejecting your shadow or erasing your past. It's about sitting with all the parts of you, the light, the dark, the fear, the power, and saying, they all belong. Carl Jung believed that what we refuse to see in ourselves will eventually control us. But what happens when you finally stop running from those hidden parts? What happens when you stop playing the role of the rescuer and start asking, what do I need to heal within me? That's where individuation begins. Try this. Close your eyes for 30 seconds and ask, what is the one truth I keep hiding from myself? Don't fix it. Don't judge it. Just listen. This simple act of witnessing your inner world is the first step home. In those moments, your real voice, quiet but steady, starts to rise again. And when you begin living from that voice, everything shifts. You realize that compassion isn't something you only pour outwards. It's something you must give to yourself. You begin to honor your limits without guilt. You learn to say no, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand that your energy is sacred. This path isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. It's learning to hold space for all of your emotions, joy and anger, love and grief, without cutting any part of yourself off. It's about trusting the signals your body gives you. When your chest tightens, when your gut says stop, when your soul whispers rest, you listen. You honor those messages instead of silencing them. And here's the surprising part. When you start living this way, people notice. You stop attracting chaos, not because the world changes, but because your inner compass no longer points to it. You become grounded, present, and untouchable in a way that doesn't need to shout. You stop dissolving to be loved. You start standing in your own presence. Individuation is not a final destination. It's a daily devotion to your truth. Some days you'll forget. Some days you'll slip back into old patterns. But each time you return to yourself, it gets easier, deeper, and more real. You start realizing that you are not here just to survive. You are here to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. So ask yourself now, what part of me have I been hiding to make others comfortable? Hold that thought, because the next step is about transforming that hidden part into your greatest strength. You've come this far, and maybe now you understand. Snapping is not the end. It's the beginning of something real. You didn't lose yourself when you finally said no. You found the part of you that was waiting to speak all along. Let's take a moment to remember what we've uncovered. We explored how the empath's fear of harming others is often rooted in childhood conditioning, in survival patterns that taught them love must be earned, not received freely. We saw how the snapping is not a breakdown but a breakthrough, an invitation to stop performing goodness and start embodying truth. And as painful as that realization is, it carries within it the seed of transformation. When the empath lets go of being the angel in someone else's story, they can finally become the hero of their own. This isn't a selfish act, it's a sacred one. Because the real power doesn't come from pleasing, it comes from presence. When the empath meets their shadow, not to fear it but to understand it, they stop giving away their energy to every storm that passes through. They stop mistaking boundaries for betrayal. They stop believing that compassion means staying silent. And slowly, they begin to live not as a fragmented soul, but as a sovereign one. If you're still listening, it means some part of you is ready to step into that sovereignty too. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to fight. You just have to return again and again to the truth of who you are. Even when it's messy, even when others don't understand, even when it costs you the version of yourself they once loved. Because the deeper love, the real love, asks you to show up fully, not just the light, but the shadow too. So take a breath. Feel that fire in your chest, that silence in your bones, that clarity in your spine. That's you unmasked. That's you whole. If this message stirred something in you, something you couldn't name until now, then this journey is only beginning. You're not alone, and you're not broken. You're becoming. And if you're ready to go even deeper, in the next video, we'll explore how the wounded healer archetype shows up in relationships and what it truly means to offer love with boundaries, not conditions. Take this moment for yourself. Sit with what's rising. Then, when you're ready, I'll meet you in the next chapter.